Hi everyone, my name's Alex, and I guess you're injured, and that's why you're here. So I'm sorry to hear that, but there's some great news. You're in the right place. We're going to discuss what you can do, what's happened, and the fact that you're coming back fitter, stronger, healthy, and happier than ever before. We've got so much to cover, of course, so let's get started.
Damn.
As I said, my name's Alex. I've played lots of football, lots of sports throughout my life, and I wanted to make this video because I know so many people go through these issues, these troubles, these pains. I have too just now. A few weeks back, I got injured, and I'm going to talk about that, my rehab, and what we can all do to be better for it. So, quick disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. As I said, I'm somebody who has played a lot of sport throughout their life. Of course, if you need to see a doctor, by all means, go and seek professional help. I'm just someone who is an enthusiast. I played fairly decent level sport as a kid, as a teenager, young person, and I've been in that environment all my life. So I had some kind of lower leg injuries, some knee problems, which really hindered, my elite progression. And at that time, I really kind of dove deep into the mechanics of what was happening. I learned so much about it. So if anyone wants me to do any videos on knees, let me know. But let's focus on the quad today. So we're talking about a quad strain or a thigh strain, thigh tear, those kinds of things. And as I said, the quad, I mentioned the quad. So as you probably know, the quad is another name, or the quadricep, another name for the thigh muscles. And it's four muscles, that's why it's called the quad. So there are four muscles there. So I'm going to talk about that today. So let's dive straight in, as I said. Starting with me, I have right now a problem with my rectus femoris. So there are four quad muscles, as I said. The rectus femoris is the biggest muscle in the middle of the thigh. And this muscle kind of goes from just above the kneecap all the way up to the thigh. It's one of the only muscles that connects into the thigh or above the hip. And that's why I know personally it was that muscle. So firstly, of course, try to understand where the pain is. One of my problems as a kid was I was misdiagnosed and I thought I had a problem here, but it was really there. Try to have an understanding of the anatomy of the body and where the problem is in the first place. So I have a problem with my main or the biggest muscle in the middle of my front of my thigh on my left side. I know it's there because I have some pain in the middle of my thigh, kind of halfway between my hip and my thigh. I have a lot of pain there. But when I do certain movements, especially move up, stand up straight and move my knee upwards, I feel some discomfort in my hip as well. So what's happened is the muscle is strong. The muscle can be tensed. And of course, when there's a rip in the muscle, you lose tension. So when I was running, I heard a pop sound, and I can talk about how you know you've ripped or torn or what kind of injury you have. But I did hear a pop sound and loss of tension straight away in my muscle. And as I said, I have now pain in the middle of my muscle and the top of where my hip is, basically. So try to figure out what the injury is. The first thing you should do when you get injured is stop. Now, it's another thing that most people like us athletes don't always do. Sometimes if you're in a competitive state or you're in a team, you don't want to let the team down, you don't want to be a quitter. But trust me, take it from someone who played on with a pretty bad knee injury for a long time. I really didn't get it diagnosed properly. I was playing too much for years, and it had a negative impact. So the good news is the body repairs typically 9 times out of 10. The body's really good at repairing itself. What happens sometimes is that we as athletes, we try and rush that too much. So really, I'll say it a few times in this video, the key is not to rush. Do not rush back. Yes, your team may need you. Yes, you like to be fit. Yes, you don't want to get unfit by being on the bed or on the sofa for too long, being out. But your recovery is key, especially at my age now, where I'm not playing elite sport anymore. I'm not competing at that level. I don't have to get back to a team, but still, I don't like to be laid out for too long. So what happened again, just to build a bit of a connection, is that my son is a great athlete already. He's 10, and he's getting quick. He's getting fast, and we wanted to do a race. I'm 40 now. We did a race about 6 months ago. I smoked him, no problem, but he's getting closer. And I said to him, maybe in a year or so, you'll be able to beat me. So he's really interested in beating me. We did a race. I won the first one by a couple of meters. He wanted a rematch. And in that rematch, I was almost there. And then, boom, quadricep gone. I was worried, like you probably are as well. I was very worried. I was thinking, at my age, am I going to come back? Am I going to be limping? Am I going to have a problem? But I stopped. I went home. And we're going to get onto what you should do immediately. But the point is, please stop. Don't continue. You have to just start the process of rehab by stopping physical exertions. So please do stop. So mine hurt. And yours probably did too. That's why you're here. In May, I started looking on YouTube half an hour after I went home and started looking on YouTube for videos. So if you've just done it recently, you're in good hands. So again, don't play on, and rest is important. Start that rehab process, that rehabilitation process as soon as possible. Okay. Now I made some notes, so I'm just looking at my notes. So what will you feel? As I said, I felt some. It wasn't a sharp pain. I've had other kinds of injuries where there is a sharp, high-grade pain. This was more of a very low-grade, back of the mind kind of pain. It was a discomfort. If I heard the pop, so I knew something was wrong, but it could be, in some cases, a kind of situation where you think, am I injured? Shall I play on? Let me give it 5-10 minutes. So you have to be diligent. You have to be hard and say, well, I have to stop. So I heard something. What did I feel? So as I said, I feel some discomfort. It feels a bit sore. Now with muscle tears and strains, you don't often get, should I say, swelling. If it's a kind of a mid-muscle, a normal tear or strain, you don't typically get so much swelling. So there was no swelling there. You often sometimes get a dent. I don't really have a dent anywhere, where the muscles are like this and then they rip apart. Just like a piece of chicken or beef, if you cut it down the middle, there'll be a gorge, a gap, a rift. And what the body's trying to do, or will do, over the first 2 stages of rehab, this inflammation stage and then this kind of regeneration stage, the rift, the tear will try, of course, to heal. Just like when you have a cut on your skin, a scab forms, and underneath that scab, the skin is trying to kind of reconnect and come back stronger. And oftentimes, of course, most of the time it does. I'm going to come back to this point, but just as we're talking about a scab, think of it as a scab. When your scab is reforming, you don't try to disturb it. Now, of course, we get inklings to scratch scabs later on, but when they're first forming, you leave it alone. And this is what you need to do with the area. Leave it alone. Please, please, please do not massage. We think about massage being good for muscles all the time, but in a case of a tear or a rip, do not massage it in those early stages. So I will get on to when you might want to massage, but that first day, week, even 2 weeks for most of us who are not professional athletes, don't massage it. Simple as that. Don't massage it. Don't disturb the scab. It won't really be a scab under the skin, but don't disturb the blood clots and the blood and the healing process, all the acids and chemicals and things that are going on underneath our skin. Don't disturb it by manipulating it with massage. So don't do that. Go home, put your feet up. This is your pass to say to your family, to your friends, you need time out. You can't do this. You can't go with them on this hike. You can't go back and forth to the kitchen. You can't clean up. You need to put your feet up. Okay. So it's a low grade kind of pain where I was able to, I did it in a local park. I did walk home very slowly, no jumping, didn't carry my little one on my shoulders. I just limped home slowly. That might be okay in that period of time. If you can drive home or whatever, fine, but try to do as little as possible in the early stages. Okay, so it was a low-grade pain. I did hear a pop, and I was worried about the pop. But like everything, there are grades. So you could pop, and you could just be lucky that it was a minor pop. It could be a major pop. You could be a bit more unlucky. But again, it depends on your physiological makeup. The pop is, I understand, kind of air and sinew and things kind of escaping, and it doesn't always have to be as bad as it sounds. So as I said, don't massage it, leave it. Go home and put your feet up. If you can, try to elevate it a bit higher than your heart, but otherwise maybe put a pillow under your leg when you lie down on the bed or on the sofa. Okay, so I'm just gonna look at my notes for a second, see if I've left anything behind. Just really try to trust your body, trust the healing process. As I said, bruising can happen. If I said that the right way around before, bruising can happen, but swelling doesn't typically happen. Everybody's body is different, so if it does respond in a different way, try not to get panicked too much. Read up about it, speak to friends, see your doctor if you need to. But a muscle tear doesn't act the same way as a knock from impact, or something happened with the bones or something like that. It's different. So the different stages. The first stage, just inflammatory stage, when the body is inflaming, and that's normal. So when you cut yourself, when you have some kind of problem, when you tear something, the body inflames. So it heats up, it sends blood to that area. Blood has oxygen in it and other vitamins and minerals. That process starts to protect the damaged site. Another tip that I would say that you don't always hear is try to avoid non-inflammatories, so anti-inflammatories. So ibuprofen, again, I'm not a doctor, but I have played football high level for years and years. There's a danger of becoming addicted to anti-inflammatories or ibuprofen. It's very easy. It's not a big deal. It's not like a terrible drug, but mentally you can start to pop these pills as soon as you have any kind of pain. And you want to avoid that, because also the effectiveness decreases the more you have it. So if you don't really need to take an anti-inflammatory as a painkiller, don't take it. If you really need to, of course, see a doctor, all that stuff, as I said. Paracetamol is fine in this case. In my case, I wanted to, but I said, let me give it a day or two, and if it's still really painful, then I'll seek some attention. But I tried not to have any kinds of pharmaceuticals in the first kind of few days. Also, as we're quite social here, we have many friends. Oftentimes we have a few drinks with friends. Please avoid alcohol. Alcohol has a massive impact on the body in general, especially when it comes to the muscles. So the rehab process for muscles is majorly impacted with alcohol. So it changes the dilation of the veins, so you'll get a different amount of blood flow. There'll be less oxygen in the blood, all kinds of stuff. So it really impacts the rehab process. So just avoid alcohol if you can for at least the first, I've seen places that say 1 or 2 days, but try 3 to 5 days if you can. But at least, very, very least the first 2 days. Try to avoid alcohol, all alcohol, and drink as much as possible. Water. Okay. So avoid that massage. Drink water. No alcohol. No anti-inflammatories, because the body needs to inflame to protect. And underneath that inflammation, it starts to rebuild and protect. So if you're taking anti-inflammatories, it could prohibit the what you're trying to do, which is to recover. So you have to let the body do its thing. Okay. So again, back to what's happened to me and what's probably happened to many people who watch this video is that first period where the body's inflamed. Try to do as little as possible. So for me, it was 7 days. I said to myself, I'm going to give myself 7 days where I do no sport, very little activity. I have a family, so we have to go to the shop. We have to go do little walks, but I made it clear I'm serious this time. It's nothing to do with being lazy. I can't do all of this stuff. I have to take it easy. So really for 7 days, no exercise, no massage, no bike. I do a lot of biking, I'll get onto that. No running, no jogging, nothing. Lots of sofa time, bedtime, put my foot up. What else have we got? So what else can you do? You may have heard of RICE, rest, ice, compression, elevation. So I would add on to the top of that, and the beginning of that you just really need to be aware of the mobility element. So reduce your mobility. Try not to do any work on top of that. Another thing that I hear a lot about is hot and cold. So we talk about, I've mentioned ice, and I will stress ice a lot in a second. Some injuries you put ice and then you put heat and then ice and heat. Do not do that with a muscle strain or tear, especially with a tear. Don't do that. Ice is what you need to do. Ice can reduce pain. It can reduce swelling if there is any. It doesn't stop the inflammation process or the rehab process, but it does help. It does help. It doesn't stop the inflammation process, but it helps the process of regeneration. So ice can be your friend. So what I do is I have my boxer shorts, and then I put like a cold pack over the boxer shorts, so the cold pack isn't directly on my skin. You should avoid putting cold packs or ice directly on the skin. So try to put something in between the skin and the cold pack or the ice, whether it's your a sock or a bandage, or in this case my boxer shorts. So what I do, as I said, I have kind of boxer shorts. My injury is just below that area, so I have my boxer shorts, an ice pack, and then like cycling shorts, tight kind of compression cycling shorts over it to keep the ice pack in place, and then I just kind of chill, literally. So that's what I do. Try to keep the ice pack on for kind of 20-30 minutes max, and then take it off. You don't want to have it on too long because it has another impact we don't have to get into. But when you get too cold, the brain starts saying, okay, something's wrong, let's reduce the blood flow to the area. You don't want that to happen. You want to encourage new blood flowing through the area. So the new blood goes in, it starts to repair, brings oxygen, brings those nutrients, the reparation process starts. And then when the old cells, old blood, waste is ready to be extruded, the flow can take that away. So you need a flow. If you put ice on for too long, then the body kind of clams up. So 20-30 minutes max, and do that as many times as you can. So 20-30 minutes on, 30 to an hour off. If you have work and other things, I know it's hard, but at least try and do that kind of in the morning, in the evening, when it gets too, when it feels too hot or there's too much discomfort, slap on an ice pack, okay? What else? Sleep. Rest as much as you can. If you just can't rest too much, rest as much as you can, but sleep is important. So I often in the evening watch Netflix or YouTube. I might be a bit tired at 11, but I'm like, I'm going to watch a movie. Try and avoid that, especially during rehab. Make a commitment to yourself that, okay, now Netflix can wait until tomorrow or whenever, but I'm going to bed as early as possible. I usually go to bed around 12:30, sometimes 1, 12, but first week at least, try to get to bed as early as 10:30, 11, as much as possible. Get as much sleep as possible. The body does a lot of recovery while you sleep. So rest and sleep. And what I try to do is when I'm in bed about to sleep or before I sleep, I put that leg up or a pillow underneath the knee, put an ice pack on there just before sleep to get that process starting again. Kickstart it just before I go to sleep. So definitely do that. What else have I got for you? So yeah, that period where we're that inflammation period for me, it can be 3 to 5 days. I wanted to give it 7 days just to be careful. Now, as you may be aware, and as I've said before, but you're probably aware, rushing back is a big problem with sports injuries. The body needs to heal. The muscle is torn, and if it doesn't, if it kind of, if you start doing workouts here, it won't be as strong as if it's kind of gone back and it's tight and it's strong before you start load bearing. I know you want to get back, but trust me, the most important thing is healing to where you were before. You don't want to be 40, 50, 60 and limping because you didn't heal properly before. It's so important that you come back. With sports, with football, many times people come back too early and then they have other injuries. So the last injury I had a Achilles and ankle problem. Now, because I had this ankle problem, I was limping a lot to save the pressure going onto the ankle. Naturally, if you have a leg injury, you limp to try and take the pressure off. Because of that, my calf wasn't getting the proper workout. It wasn't working the way it was. So what happened was my calf was getting weaker, unbeknownst to me, while my Achilles and my ankle was getting stronger as I was resting it. So after my Achilles and ankle was recovered, I went straight back into the team. And then I got a calf injury because the calf had got weaker and I didn't realize that. So please think about the knock-on effects. And that's what I'll talk about now. So after you have rested for 3, 5, 7 days, completely iced, slept, compressed. Compression is another thing you should do. Think about bandages, tight bandages, of course, not so tight that you restrict your blood flow, but compression is important. If you can. I've been wearing bike shorts. I've got these special ones that are quite tight. Rest, ice, compression, elevation. So if you're lying down, if you can put your leg up, even if it's just in line with your heart or above your heart with a pillow, perfect. But the ice and the rest are a little bit more important. Okay, so after that period of 3, 5, 7 days, depends on you. After that period, then you can start to think about some kind of form of exercise, but do not rush this period. I've recently done that, where I've had that period of inflammation, and then I've come back. So I do a lot of cycling as well. Still play a lot of football, friends and family and stuff. But my first cycle ride was literally 10 minutes. I usually do like 2-3 hour rides, but this cycle I did coming back was 10 minutes. So 10 minutes, very low resistance, 10 minutes, because I have done nothing for a week, nothing at all. So I did 10 minutes on the bike, and then I did about 20 minutes of stretching and stability work and stuff. Now, very, very, very important. Do not stretch proper stretches in that inflammatory phase. Don't massage and manipulate and disturb the actual blood clot, the actual scab, the actual site where the muscle is repairing. Don't massage it and don't stretch it with proper stretches. Leave it. What I did after my 10-minute ride was very, very light, simple range of movement stretches, very simple stuff. Do not stretch. Can't stress that enough. Do not stretch, bend, squat, lunge too hard. Avoid those kinds of exercises. Really take it slowly. I just wanted to wake the body up a little with some minor stretches after a 10-minute ride, and that's all I did on the first day back. Second and third day back, similar, but 10 minute to 12 minute, and maybe a few other exercises, but very, 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 very low level. We do not want to have a relapse in these early stages while the muscle is not formed correctly. So those are the most important things. Everything else I'm going to tell you now, I'm cognizant of your time. Don't want to talk too much, but please, rehab is important. That rest stage is important. So what else have I got here? Okay, so what did I do in those in that rehab period after the inflammation period? So as I said, with my injury, the thigh strain, with that muscle, it connects to the hip. So quite frankly, what that muscle does is it helps me raise my leg up. Let me show you quickly. So it helps raise the leg up. This is my injured leg. So this muscle here connects into here, and it helps me raise this leg up like that. So I have a little discomfort here. So what I did after the bike was some exercises where I just kind of do that. And then on the other leg, 10 times, on both legs, that kind of thing. And then some other minor movements, but it was just to get it moving, just to lift that leg up a few times, which I haven't really been doing. Nothing too heavy, nothing too hard. So, as I said, some movements, some exercises that will help you lift the leg, rotate the leg, what that muscle does is it lifts the leg. So this flex at the hip is one of the things that this muscle does. It helps you extend the leg. So kind of if the leg was like this, pulling it out like this, like the tricep, it pulls it up like that. So that's another thing that I'm thinking about, the movement of the leg. So this muscle extends the leg up, extends the leg outwards, lifts the leg up, and also controls when we squat or when we bend down, so we're not shaking too much, going forward or backwards. So those are the three things that muscle does. So I'm aware of what it does, so I have to be aware that I can't do certain things because this muscle is not 100%. So small exercises, building them up over the next 2 weeks, and that's what you need to do. So that first period could be 3 to 7, depending if it's really bad, 10 days. You have to figure that out, how long that period is. For me, it was 7 days of nothing. Then it's going to be a week or two of extending your range of mobility, extending your leg, lifting your leg up, getting your balance back, those kinds of things, but nothing too heavy. Okay, so really think about how long you stay in that phase. And I think that's about it for this video. If you want more on the video, please let me know, but think about those 2 stages especially. Anything else I want to mention? Let me have a look. The only other thing I would say is that other than those movements for your leg, the areas around that part are also important. So think about core stability, your core, your ab muscles, your obliques, your side muscles. These things are all impacted when you lose a muscle like that for a while. So think about your core stability as well, your balance. Think about those things as well. So work on the core stability as well, and then take the cycling up. So for me, as I said, it goes in stages. First, I did a bit more walking after that inflammation phase, then cycling, but kept it on to a small number of minutes. Walking, cycling, leg exercises, leg and hip exercises, core stuff, core strength and stability. And after that, if you're pain-free, then and only then would I say go on to some light jogging. And then after that light jogging, and you're still continuing with your core stability, your leg extensions, your hip extensions, you're building your bum muscles back as well. All these things, all this top leg stuff. If you're then okay with cycling, walking, light jogging, then I would say that after that period, if you're still pain-free and you're still doing the other stuff, still getting your rest in, then and only then would I consider or advise you to move on to ballistics. But again, very stages. But if you try to play football too early, where you're kicking and running, so again, what happened for me is I was running in a straight line, but that thrust, when I lift my leg up and kick it back, that was too much for me. I've been on the sofa, it's lockdown, right? So I've been locked down for the best part of a year, more or less. I've been cycling, but it's a different movement. Locked down for a year. On that day, I was on the sofa all day, went to the park, and my son said, let's race. And I went from sofa time to full-blown racing, and there was no stretching. So important, very important thing, if I didn't say it before, warming up and stretching is not just important when you're 40, it's important at every point. Now, you may not have had an injury before, but it can happen at any point. I've had teammates at very young ages get muscle strains and tears from not warming up or stretching. Warming up and stretching is very, very important. And that's what happened. That's why it happened to me. I went from chilling on the sofa to full-blown running and nothing in between. And if I had done some stretching and warming up before, it wouldn't have happened. So it was too much for me. And at one point, it's just like the straw that breaks the camel's back. So I'll leave you there. Please let me know how you're getting on. I'm on your side. We want to rebuild and come back stronger. Let me know how your rehab is going. If you have any questions about quad injuries, quad tears, or the knee, I had patella tendonitis and other things for a long time. kneecap problems, knee problems as a football player, let me know. But the order of the day, the big point is do not rush it. Take your time. Rest, ice, sleep, drink lots of water. Don't massage too early. Don't stretch your quad. Let the process of healing do its thing before you load bear. And only after you've done all of those things and you've gone through the phase of the pain reducing a little bit every day, you've started to walk, you've started to cycle, for example, very slow, very easy pace, less resistance as possible, then you can gradually work up. Don't start jumping progressions, because if you get another tear whilst it's not 100%, that you know how bad that can be. Okay, so give your body the time and the space it needs to recover back to the level it was, and that will take time. And then you can go back. My number one concern was never recovering and having a limp or never being able to run my full pace again. And that could be the case if I don't let the muscle heal all the way. So I will start to get massages in a few weeks, maybe, but not yet. I will start to do load bearing or high intensity directional movements, but in a few weeks. For now, I'm still walking in straight lines, cycling in straight lines, but for very short amounts of time. Good luck with your recovery. I hope you've had enough entertainment and information for one day. Don't be too upset. Be positive. You can do this. You got this. And I'll see you next time. Thanks again. Goodbye.